Hello students, in today's lesson we will learn about market equilibrium, a fundamental concept in economics, and how market forces of demand and supply interact to determine the price and quantity of goods in a market. What is market equilibrium? A market is in equilibrium when the quantity of a good that buyers want to buy equals the quantity that sellers want to sell. This happens at the point where the demand curve and supply curve intersect, and this can be shown in the next slide graphically. At this point, there is no shortage, there is no surplus, there is no shortage in demand, there is no surplus in supply. So the price here is called the equilibrium price, and we normally denoted this in the graph by B star. The quantity is called the equilibrium quantity, denoted also as Q star. Think of it like this. At price P star, buyers get exactly what they want, and sellers sell everything they want or they bring to the market. What happens if the price is not at equilibrium? If price is too high, above equilibrium, there is a surplus. Too much supply, not enough demand. Sellers cannot sell all their products, so they will reduce prices to attract more buyers. But if price is too low, below equilibrium, there is a shortage, too much demand and not enough supply. Buyers compete to get the product. Sellers will raise prices since demand is strong. These market forces push the price back to the equilibrium level. So, let us look to the graphical presentation of these. When the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied at a given price, market surplus. Surplus occurs when the quantity supplied of a good exceeds the quantity demanded at a particular price level. So let us display, or let us look to this graph. In this graph, the demand curve D slopes downward, indicating that as price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Look from 6, if the price is 6, demand is 600 units or hot dogs. So the supply curve S slopes upward, indicating that as price increases, quantity supplied increases from 0 to 500. Look at the red line. This is supply. The blue line is demand. So the equilibrium occurs at the intersection of the red line with the blue line, the intersection where the supply curve crosses the demand curve, where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. But now, suppose the market price is set above equilibrium. We have the equilibrium price here is $3. But if the price is set at $5 and the equilibrium quantity is 300, the equilibrium price is 3, the equilibrium quantity is 300. But let us suppose the market price is set above the equilibrium at $5. maybe due to price floor or incorrect market signals. So let us say this price or the price is set at this higher level, which is $5. At this higher price, the quantity supplied is now 500 and the quantity demanded is 100. The gap between quantity supplied and quantity demanded is the surplus. More goods are being produced than are being bought. The produced is 500 and the bought is 100. This leads to unsold stock, wasted resources, and downward pressure on prices as producers try to offload inventory. Eventually, competitive forces push the price back towards equilibrium. So surplus means quantity supplied is larger than quantity demanded if the price is set above the equilibrium price. The causes can be price floor, overproduction, or reduction in demand. So, understanding surplus is very crucial for analyzing market failures, government interventions, and price distortions. As we have mentioned many times during the previous slides, that market equilibrium occurs at the point where the quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. And this point determines the equilibrium price P1 and the equilibrium quantity Q1. Now let us look at the graph. We have the quantity at the horizontal axis or the x-axis, the price at the y-axis or the vertical axis, and we have the demand curve D1, downward sloping curve, the supply curve S1, upward sloping curve, and the market equilibrium at P1, Q1. Let us introduce a change, more costly technology. Imagine that a new technology makes production more expensive. For example, due to higher energy cost or raw material prices. This increases production cost, which reduces the quantity supplied at each price level. So now the price curve or the supply curve shift upward from the blue line to the green line S2, from the blue line S1 to the green line S2. So we have a new equilibrium at P2, Q2. As a result of the shift from S1 to S2, there is a new equilibrium at point P2, Q2. So the new equilibrium, the price increases from P1 to P2, and the equilibrium quantity decreases from Q1 to Q2. So we have, as I told you, we have a new intersection of supply S2, the new supply curve, with the original demand curve S2 with D1. So a more costly technology can shift the supply curve leftward, and this leads to a higher price and lower quantity exchanged in the market. This example illustrates how production cost and technology plays a key role in determining market outcomes. Always remember, shift in supply or demand move the equilibrium, not just the price. Now let us explore how an adverse change in consumer taste affect market equilibrium using a simple demand and supply diagram or curves. Let us begin with the market equilibrium, and we have our standard graph where S1 and D1, the equilibrium are the original supply curve and demand curve, and the equilibrium at P1, Q1. So as usual, we have the price at the vertical axis and quantity at the horizontal axis or on the horizontal axis. Initially, the demand curve, the blue line is D1, intersects with the supply curve S1, the blue line, at P1, Q1. So this gives us the original equilibrium price P1 and the original equilibrium quantity Q1. So now suppose there is an adverse change in consumer preferences. For example, consumers no longer like sugary drinks due to health concerns. This leads to a decrease in demand. The demand curve shifts leftward from D1 to D2, from the blue line to the green line. On this graph, or on the graph, this new demand curve D2 intersects the same supply curve S1. So the green demand curve with the blue supply curve at the new equilibrium points P2 and Q2, where we can observe that the price decreased from P1 to P2 and the quantity also decreased from Q1 to Q2. So in summary, a fall in demand due to a change in taste lowers both the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. The market also can adjust through downward pressure on price until a new equilibrium is reached. This illustrates how non-price factors like consumer preferences can shift demand and affect market equilibrium, a critical point in understanding market dynamics. We will also explore the concept of market equilibrium and analyze what happens when policymakers intervene by imposing a price ceiling using a real-world example like rent control in major cities such as Khartoum or Cairo. So let us assume or now imagine that policymakers think the equilibrium price is too high for renters. So they impose a price ceiling below the equilibrium price. This is a legal maximum price landlords can charge for rent. At this artificially low price, quantity demanded increases because rent is now cheaper, so more people want apartments, while quantity supplied decreases because landlords find it less profitable, so they offer fewer apartments. The result is a shortage, where quantity demanded is larger than quantity supplied. This shortage creates inefficiencies and non-price rationing, such as long waiting lists, bribes, or discrimination. In cities like New York, rent control laws cap rent to protect low-income tenants. While the intention is fairness, the outcome often includes housing shortage, decline in housing quality, landlords invest less in maintenance, Black markets for rental units. So although price ceilings are meant to increase affordability, they can cause market distortions and inequities over time. Conclusion: price ceilings, when set below equilibrium, may help some consumers in the short term, but they often lead to persistent shortages and inefficient allocation of resources. Effective policy must balance equity with efficiency. Also, in a perfectly competitive labor market, the equilibrium wage and equilibrium quantity of labor are determined at the point where the demand for labor intersects the supply of labor. This intersection points ensure that the number of workers firms want to hire equals the number of workers willing to work at that wage. So a price floor is a legally imposed minimum price that can be charged in a market when the government sets a minimum wage above the equilibrium wage. It distorts the market. So from a policy perspective, a minimum wage aims to ensure a livable income for workers. However, if it is set too high above the market clearing wage, it can lead to reduced hiring, especially among low-skilled or entry-level workers. So, let us always remember that market equilibrium ensures efficient allocation of resources. Price floors set above equilibrium creates surplus. Price ceiling set below equilibrium creates shortage. So policy must balance social equity and market efficiency. Thanks, my student. This is the end of the lecture.